They said the Deathworlder was a myth, a shadow whispered about in frightened voices across distant colonies. No one had seen it and lived. Entire fleets vanished without a trace, their last transmissions filled with static and desperate warnings. The stories told of a monstrous alien warrior clad in armor that seemed impossible to pierce. Its claws could rend starships like paper, and its presence alone was enough to silence entire worlds. It was the galaxy's nightmare come to life. But then the humans arrived. A small, determined fleet approached the edge of Deathworlder territory, their hulls scarred from years of exploration and skirmishes in far-flung systems. They carried no grand fleet of warships, only a handful of battered vessels and an unshakable will. Their orders were clear. Investigate the silence from a distant human survey ship that had gone dark near a desolate, hostile planet rumored to be the Deathworlder's hunting ground. Inside the command ship, Captain Elias Marlowe stared at the flickering star map. His fingers tapped rhythmically on the console, eyes sharp with anticipation and the weight of responsibility. The rest of the crew moved silently, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and determination. None of them had ever faced the Deathworlder, but all knew the legends. They say it's not just a creature, Marlowe whispered. It's a force of nature. The fleet slowed as they entered the outer system. The planet below was a scarred wasteland, a world designed by evolution to kill. Jagged mountain ranges tore the sky, storms of electrical fury crackled in the thick atmosphere, and vast deserts stretched like open wounds across the surface. This was the Deathworlder's domain. The silence was heavy. No signals. No response from the survey ship. Just static. Then, out of the dark, something moved. A scout vessel, sleek and black as the void, slipped between asteroids. Its sensors locked onto the human's fleet. The Deathworlder's eyes, intelligent, cold, and unblinking, watched. It was a hunter sizing up its prey. On the command bridge, Marlowe's voice was calm but firm. Prepare for possible contact. This isn't a negotiation. This is survival. The scout didn't fire. Instead, it circled, watching, waiting. The humans responded with caution, scanning every shadow, every flicker of movement. They knew that any mistake here would be fatal. Hours passed. The tension was suffocating. Suddenly, the scout vanished. The crew exhaled collectively, though the unease lingered. That night, beneath the artificial glow of their ship's lights, Marlowe gathered his officers. "We don't know what we're facing," he said quietly, "but we know it's real. And it's dangerous. We have to be smarter, faster, better than anything we've faced before." The crew nodded. They were far from home, in the jaws of a predator the galaxy feared. But they carried something no legend had: unyielding human resolve. Outside, the storm raged on. The Deathworlder waited in the shadows, its presence a promise of violence to come. But the humans were not afraid. Not yet. They had come for answers. And whatever the cost, they would find them. The silence between the stars was thick, heavy with anticipation. The humans had expected confrontation, but not this tense stillness. Their ships drifted cautiously through the asteroid belt that shielded the Deathworlder's territory. Jagged rocks hung suspended in the void like ancient tombstones. Every sensor was alert, every crew member on edge. No one spoke of fear aloud, but it hung in the air, as palpable as the cold vacuum beyond the hull. The Deathworlder's scouts had been watching them since their arrival, unseen but always present. The humans knew the alien was calculating, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Yet there was no sign, no attack, just the weight of eyes in the darkness. Captain Elias Marlowe stood at the bridge's viewport, staring into the blackness. "They're waiting," he said, "but we won't back down." His second-in-command, Lieutenant Ava studied the sensor readouts. Our scans show no immediate threat. But their technology is unlike anything we've seen. They're cloaked or hiding behind some kind of advanced stealth. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The Deathworlder was a legend built on terror and destruction. Yet here it was, silent and still. Was it testing them? Or had it already made its decision? The humans advanced deeper into the asteroid field, every move deliberate. They sent out drones, small, nimble probes designed to gather intel without risking lives. One drone slipped past the jagged rocks, transmitting images back in bursts of static and interference. Then, suddenly, the feed cut out. Marlowe's jaw tightened. Lost the drone. That's no accident. A warning bell sounded somewhere in the ship. Sensors flickered as the unknown cloaking technology shimmered in and out of detection range. The crew held their breath as a massive shadow emerged from the darkness. It was unlike anything they expected. The Deathworlder was colossal. Its armor gleamed with an unnatural sheen, edged with spikes that looked as sharp as blades. Its eyes glowed faintly, scanning the fleet with calculated menace. It moved with a predator's grace, despite its size, each step shaking the void. But the humans did not recoil. Marlowe's voice was steady. Open communications. Attempt peaceful contact. We don't want a war we can't win. The silence was almost cruel. No response came. Instead, the Deathworlder scout launched a warning salvo, a warning shot that tore through the nearest asteroid, sending fragments flying dangerously close to the human fleet. Chen's eyes narrowed. They're testing us. The fleet responded immediately. Shields flared, weapons powered up, but no one fired. The humans held their ground, showing strength without aggression. Hours stretched into tense standoff. The Deathworlder circled, its presence a constant threat. The humans sent messages, calls for peace, offers to understand. Still no reply. In the quiet moments, Marlowe considered what they knew about the alien. It was a creature born of war, evolved on a planet where only the strongest survived. Its armor was nearly impenetrable, its senses acute, and its mind sharp. To the galaxy, it was a force of destruction unmatched. But the humans had something else, resilience born from hardship, and the willingness to face the unknown without surrender. The night wore on. The fleet prepared to retreat if necessary. But Marlowe knew this was just the beginning. They had crossed a threshold. The Deathworlder had acknowledged their presence, and soon the true test would begin. Under the watchful eyes of the silent hunter, the humans braced themselves, not just for battle, but for the challenge of proving that no legend, no matter how terrifying, was beyond challenge. The planet's surface was a nightmare forged by nature itself. Jagged mountains tore into the sky like shattered glass. Acid rains fell in relentless sheets, sizzling the rocky soil. Lightning storms raged with fury, crackling through a sky heavy with toxic clouds. This was the Deathworlder's home, an ecosystem designed to kill, to challenge every life form that dared survive. Human engineers worked feverishly aboard their battered ship, transforming their equipment for the hostile environment. Armor was reinforced with adaptive polymers, breathing systems calibrated to filter the planet's deadly atmosphere. Every detail was scrutinized, every precaution taken. They knew the cost of failure. Death was not a theory here. It was the law of survival. Captain Marlowe stood in the lab, watching the modifications with a quiet intensity. His mind raced, balancing strategy with the simple hope of returning alive. Soldiers gathered around, their faces grim but resolute. They had trained for years for missions like this, but nothing prepared them for a world where the environment itself was a weapon. Lieutenant Ava approached, her voice steady despite the tension. We're ready to deploy the first reconnaissance team in 2 hours. They'll move slow and steady, gather as much data as possible before the Deathworlder can react. Marlowe nodded. Keep communications open. We need eyes everywhere. Outside, the storm roared as the reconnaissance shuttle descended. Its thrusters fought against brutal winds, shaking violently as it touched down on the barren soil. The team emerged, clad in suits engineered to withstand the planet's fury. Every step was cautious, every movement deliberate. The landscape was unforgiving. Sharp rocks tore at their boots. Toxic spores drifted on the wind. The humans pressed forward, scanning and mapping. But beneath the storm's howl, there was a silence, a stillness that felt wrong. Suddenly, the Deathworlder appeared. It moved like a shadow, blending with the twisted rock formations. Its armor gleamed even in the dim light, every muscle coiled and ready. The humans froze, their weapons raised, but no shots were fired yet. The creature was watching, calculating. Private Liam Torres swallowed hard. It's closer than we thought. The Deathworlder didn't attack immediately. Instead, it circled, testing the humans. Its eyes locked onto Torres, then shifted to the others. It was a predator sizing up prey, weighing risk and reward. Marlowe's voice crackled over comms. Hold your positions. Observe. Don't engage unless necessary. The team obeyed, hearts pounding in their chests. The Deathworlder's presence was overwhelming, an ancient force shaped by violence and survival. Yet, the humans stood firm, their training and determination a shield against fear. Minutes passed like hours. Then, the Deathworlder struck. With terrifying speed, it lunged toward the nearest soldier. Blaster fire echoed, but the creature dodged with uncanny agility. A fierce battle erupted, close quarters, brutal, desperate. The humans used every tactic, every ounce of training. They fired, retreated, regrouped. In the chaos, Lieutenant Chun spotted a weakness. The Deathworlder's armor, though nearly impenetrable, had joints where movement left gaps. She shouted over the comms, "Target the joints. That's where we get through." The team adjusted instantly, focusing fire on those vulnerable points. The Deathworlder roared in pain, but didn't retreat. It fought back harder, each strike deadly and precise. The battlefield became a deadly dance. Humans moved with grit, and grit alone kept them alive. They fought not just for victory, but for survival. After what felt like an eternity, the Deathworlder withdrew into the storm, leaving behind broken rocks and a shaken but unbroken human squad. Back at the command ship, Marlowe exhaled deeply. "They think they're the hunters," he said quietly. "But here, we show them humans don't break." The storm continued to rage, but so did the spirit of the humans. On this planet, against a monster bred to kill, they had made their stand. And they were just getting started. The ground shook beneath their feet as the Deathworlder unleashed its fury. It charged like a tempest, a living storm of claws and teeth and unrelenting power. The humans had anticipated this moment, but nothing could fully prepare them for the raw violence that tore through the wasteland. The first clash was brutal, a violent ballet of survival that echoed across the scorched plains. Captain Marlowe barked orders, voice steady despite the chaos. "Hold the line. Use the terrain. Focus fire on the joints." Soldiers scrambled for cover behind shattered rocks and jagged debris. Blaster fire streaked through the smoky air, mingling with the deafening roar of the Deathworlder. Its armor deflected most shots, but the humans had learned to strike where it was weakest. Joints, gaps in the plating, places where the creature's incredible strength became a vulnerability. Private Liam Torres duffed to the side as the Deathworlder swung a massive arm. The ground exploded where his head had been moments before. "Keep moving," he shouted to his squad. adrenaline sharpening every sense. Lieutenant Ava Chun coordinated from the rear, her eyes scanning for openings. Target the left elbow. Now. A hail of concentrated fire hit the joint, sparks flying as the Deathworlder howled in pain. It staggered but recovered quickly, launching a counterattack with terrifying speed. 2 soldiers fell before the rest could react. The humans fought with precision born from years of training and a fierce determination to survive. They moved as one, covering each other's backs, adapting instantly to the creature's unpredictable tactics. Every loss was a blow, but every victory was a spark of hope. Amid the chaos, Marlowe noticed a pattern. The Deathworlder was smart, far smarter than anyone had imagined. It wasn't mindless rage driving its attacks, but calculated strategy. It tested their defenses, looking for weaknesses not just in armor, but in spirit. The battle stretched on, exhaustion creeping into muscles and minds. Yet the humans refused to break. Their weapons might not pierce the Deathworlder's armor completely, but their resolve was unyielding. Suddenly, Chun shouted, "Flank it. Use the canyon walls." Marlowe seized the opportunity. "Alpha Squad, move left. Bravo, provide cover fire." The soldiers executed the maneuver with practiced efficiency. Using the rocky terrain, they surrounded the Deathworlder, forcing it into a narrow canyon where its massive size became a disadvantage. The creature roared in frustration, slamming its fists against the stone walls, sending debris crashing down. The humans pressed their advantage. Focused fire hammered the creature's vulnerable joints. The Deathworlder's movement slowed, each step heavier, more labored. It was wounded, but far from defeated. Marlowe's voice was calm but resolute. "This is our chance. Push forward." With renewed vigor, the humans advanced. The Deathworlder fought back with desperate ferocity, but the tide was turning. Finally, with a final ear-splitting roar, it collapsed to its knees, exhausted and battered. The battlefield fell silent, save for the ragged breaths of soldiers and the distant rumble of storms. The humans stared at the fallen giant, a mix of triumph and disbelief in their eyes. Marlowe exhaled slowly. "We held the line." But even in victory, they knew this was only the beginning. The Deathworlder was a force unlike any other, and it would not stay down for long. As the storm clouds gathered once more, the humans prepared for whatever came next. They had faced the galaxy's deadliest predator and lived to tell the tale. And now, they would fight not just for survival, but for the right to claim their place among the stars. The Deathworlder's roar echoed across the canyon, a sound that seemed to shake the very air itself. The beast lay sprawled on the jagged ground, its massive chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. But even in defeat, its eyes burned with fierce intelligence, a spark that told the humans this was far from over. Captain Marlowe approached cautiously, his boots crunching over shattered rock. The creature's armor was scarred and broken in places, but it was still alive and dangerous. "We've seen its strength," Marlowe murmured to Lieutenant Chun. "But what about its mind?" Chun studied the Deathworlder's gaze, searching for clues. "It's not just a beast. It's calculating, maybe even curious." Around them, the soldiers remained tense, weapons trained on the fallen giant. Yet, no one dared to lower their guard. This was a predator, and predators were unpredictable. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A deep rumble grew louder, vibrations crawling through the canyon walls. The humans glanced at each other, fear creeping back into their eyes. From the shadows, smaller creatures began to emerge. Packs of vicious, alien predators, less massive than the Deathworlder, but no less deadly, circled the humans. Their eyes gleamed with hunger, and their movements were swift and coordinated. Marlowe's voice rang out. "Defensive positions. Protect the wounded. Stay sharp." The humans scrambled, forming tight ranks. Blaster fire erupted, cutting swaths through the alien packs. Yet, the creatures pressed relentlessly, their numbers overwhelming. Amid the chaos, Marlowe realized the Deathworlder's fall had triggered something deeper. These were its allies, creatures bred for survival on this hellish planet, and they were not going to let the humans claim victory easily. Lieutenant Shin called out, "We need to retreat. Regroup at the extraction point." The order was given, but retreat meant risking the Deathworlder being left behind, or worse, falling into enemy hands. Marlowe hesitated, torn between strategy and compassion. Suddenly, the Deathworlder shifted, struggling to rise. The soldiers froze, unsure whether it would attack or flee. Then, with a guttural growl, the Deathworlder stood on trembling legs. It looked not at the humans, but at the attacking predators, letting out a ferocious battle cry. The smaller creatures paused, startled by the giant's renewed strength. A brutal skirmish erupted as the Deathworlder defended the humans, driving back the pack with savage fury. It was an unexpected act, an alien guardian fighting alongside its enemies. Marlowe's eyes widened in disbelief. "It's protecting us." The humans seized a moment, retreating carefully under the Deathworlder's shield. It seemed to understand the balance of power had shifted. It fought not as a mindless monster, but as a creature bound by some unspoken code. Back at the extraction point, the humans regrouped, panting and bloodied, but alive. The Deathworlder limped beside them, no longer a foe, but a wary ally. Marlowe met the creature's gaze. "You're not what we expected," he said quietly. Chun nodded. "Maybe the galaxy's most dangerous warrior isn't just a killer. Maybe it's something more." As the storm clouds darkened the sky, a fragile truce was born, one that would change the fate of both species. The humans had faced death and found an unexpected partner in the heart of darkness. And the real battle for understanding, survival, and perhaps even peace was only just beginning. The uneasy alliance between humans and the Deathworlder shifted the very fabric of the battlefield. Neither side had expected it. An alien predator, feared across the galaxy, fighting alongside those who once sought its destruction. But now, survival demanded something greater than old fears and grudges. Captain Marlowe studied the towering figure beside him. The Deathworlder's armor was battered, its movements slower, but its eyes held a fierce determination, one that mirrored his own crew's unyielding spirit. "We need to understand it," Marlowe said, voice low. "If we can't communicate through words, maybe actions will speak." Lieutenant Shin nodded, carefully approaching the massive creature. She extended a hand, an ancient human gesture of peace. The Deathworlder hesitated, but did not strike. Instead, it lowered its head slightly, a gesture not unlike a nod. The humans worked quickly to stabilize the creature, using advanced medtech to mend wounds and ease pain. Their efforts were met with cautious acceptance. The Deathworlder remained vigilant, but allowed the treatment. Days passed. The storm above the alien planet continued its relentless assault, but beneath the roiling skies, something unexpected blossomed, an exchange of trust. The Deathworlder began to mimic human gestures, sometimes tilting its head in curiosity or mirroring a raised hand. On the ship, scientists pored over data, searching for clues to the Deathworlder's language. It was complex, part vocalizations, part subtle body movements, and an energy signature that pulsed like a heartbeat. One evening, Chun observed the creature communicating through a series of clicks and low growls. She responded with a slow nod and a soft voice. The Deathworlder's eyes brightened, a flicker of understanding bridging the vast gulf between species. Marlowe gathered his officers. "This changes everything," he said. "We may have found more than just a foe. We found a chance at coexistence. But the galaxy was not ready to accept such hope. Back on their homeworlds, news of the encounter spread rapidly. Many saw the Deathworlder as an enemy, a monster to be destroyed. Fear and suspicion grew. Meanwhile, on the planet, the humans and the Deathworlder prepared for what might come next. A new threat loomed on the horizon, an alien armada, drawn by the conflict and eager to claim the Deathworlder's home for themselves. The humans knew that if they were to survive, they would need to stand united, with the creature once believed to be their executioner. As the Armada's ships darkened the skies, Marlowe looked at the Deathworlder and spoke with conviction. We fight together, or we fall divided. The Deathworlder's eyes locked onto his, fierce and unwavering. It roared, a sound filled with both warning and promise. In that moment, two warriors, once enemies, became allies in a battle that would decide not just their survival, but the future of a galaxy poised on the edge of chaos. The storm raged on, but so did hope. The humans and the Deathworlder were ready. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The alien armada emerged from the void like a dark tide, massive warships blotting out distant stars. Their designs were brutal and alien, weapons bristling with destructive power. The fleet advanced relentlessly toward the Deathworlder's planet, intent on conquest and annihilation. The humans and their newfound ally stood ready, every system on high alert. Captain Marlowe surveyed the command deck, tension gripping his every muscle. "This is it," he said. "The galaxy's deadliest warrior and humanity, side by side, against an enemy that knows no mercy." Lieutenant Shin nodded grimly. "They're coming fast. We have minutes before engagement." The Deathworlder's presence on the bridge was overwhelming. Towering and resolute, it seemed to absorb the chaos around it, a living embodiment of strength and defiance. Its eyes scanned the oncoming fleet, calculating. As the first missiles streaked toward them, the humans and Deathworlder sprung into action. Shields flared, energy weapons charged, and the battle erupted in a violent storm of fire and metal. Explosions rocked the command ship, sending shudders through the crew. Soldiers manned their stations with fierce determination, fighting not just for survival, but for the fragile alliance that had formed. The Deathworlder charged into the fray, slamming its massive armored fists into enemy vessels. Its strength shattered hulls like glass, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. Smaller human fighters darted around it, providing cover fire and disrupting enemy formations. Captain Marlowe coordinated the assault, issuing orders that blended human tactics with the Deathworlder's raw power. Focus on their command ship, break their coordination. Despite the overwhelming odds, the alliance held. The Deathworlder's intimate knowledge of the planet's defenses gave them an edge, while human ingenuity adapted quickly to the enemy's technology. But the Armada was relentless. Their firepower intensified, pushing the defenders to their limits. In the chaos, a missile slipped past the shields and struck the command ship's reactor core. Warning alarms blared. Marlowe gritted his teeth. Emergency protocols. Evacuate non-essential personnel. Chun, keep the Deathworlder in the fight. Lieutenant Chun relayed orders, rallying the troops amid the rising panic. The Deathworlder responded with renewed fury, smashing through enemy lines to protect the retreating humans. In the heart of the battle, Marlowe found himself face to face with an enemy commander, a towering alien with weapons that rivaled even the Deathworlder's might. The two locked eyes, a silent challenge passing between them. With no time to hesitate, Marlowe engaged in hand-to-hand combat, drawing on every ounce of his training. Blaster fire echoed around them, but the duel was personal. Man against alien, survival against extinction. The Deathworlder, sensing the fight's importance, focused its attacks on the enemy's support ships, weakening their reinforcements. Marlowe managed a decisive strike, incapacitating the enemy commander. The alien fleet faltered, confusion rippling through their ranks. Seizing the moment, the humans and Deathworlder pressed their advantage. The Armada's ships began to retreat, battered and broken. As silence returned, the battlefield was scarred, but victory belonged to the unlikely alliance. Captain Marlowe exhaled deeply, the weight of the battle settling on his shoulders. "We did it," he said quietly. "Together." The Deathworlder stood beside him, battered but unbowed. It let out a low growl, a sound that felt like respect. In the aftermath, as repair crews worked and wounded soldiers recovered, the humans and Deathworlder faced an uncertain future. But they had proven that even the deadliest foes could become allies when survival demanded it. And somewhere deep within the vast galaxy, a new legend was born, not of terror, but of unity and resilience. The dust settled on the battered battlefield, silence replacing the storm of war. The stars above flickered faintly through the hazy atmosphere, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The Deathworlder stood tall beside the humans, not as an enemy, but as a guardian, a symbol of a bond forged in fire and blood. Captain Marlowe surveyed the wreckage, feeling the weight of what had been won, and what still remained uncertain. This was no simple victory. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one that challenged everything humanity thought it knew about the galaxy, its dangers, and its allies. Lieutenant Chin approached, her voice steady despite the exhaustion. "The Armada has retreated. For now." Marlowe nodded. "But they'll be back. Others will come. And we need to be ready." The Deathworlder, once a creature of pure destruction, now seemed almost contemplative. It shifted, its heavy armor scraping against the rocky ground, and emitted a low, rumbling sound, almost like a sigh. It was a reminder that even the fiercest warriors bore burdens no one else could see. Scientists began their work, studying the Deathworlder with a new purpose. No longer just a subject or a threat, it was now a partner. Attempts were made to understand its language, its culture, and the reason behind its sudden alliance. As days turned into weeks, small breakthroughs emerged. The Deathworlder was more than a fighter. It was a guardian of its world, a species shaped by hardship and survival. It had tested the humans not just in battle, but in character. Marlowe reflected on the journey from fear to understanding. Humans had come to this hostile world expecting death. Instead, they found a fierce protector, a testament to resilience and unexpected kinship. The Deathworlder, in turn, seemed to recognize something uniquely human: courage, adaptability, and a will to survive that rivaled its own. Together, they had faced overwhelming odds and lived to tell the tale. But beyond the battlefield, the galaxy was watching. Reports of this alliance sparked hope and skepticism alike. Some called it a miracle. Others warned it was a dangerous gamble. Yet, Marlowe believed in what they had forged. This is more than survival. It's a new path, one where we learn from each other. As the humans prepared to establish a permanent base on the planet, the Deathworlder remained at their side, a sentinel against threats both known and unseen. It was a reminder that sometimes the greatest enemies could become the strongest allies. In the quiet moments, Marlowe often found himself staring at the stars, imagining the countless worlds beyond. He knew their journey was far from over. Challenges would come, new enemies would rise, and the lessons of the Deathworlder would be tested again. But for now, amidst the ruins and the rising dawn, humanity had found something precious: a friend in the dark, a warrior who taught them that survival was not just about strength, but about trust. And in the endless expanse of space, that trust was the most powerful weapon of all.